Good afternoon. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Today is November 28th, 2023. Good to see you. Come on in, have a seat, and good to have you with us. As you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me typically on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And if you have not already, you guys can go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com, so you guys are aware of whenever I upload clips, go live, or write any articles there. So thank you so very much to all of you. If you guys have not already, if you like me already from seeing me throughout other streams and clips, then you guys can go ahead and like the stream. But if you guys want to wait until the end, go ahead and either give a like or dislike or whatever floats your boat. So good to see all of you here before my very eyes, or perceived eyes, right? So just to let you guys know, as per usual, whenever I do have a guest, I always make sure to be respectful of the guest time. So I will get to my salutations to everybody in the chat shortly, but I would like to introduce my guest. She's an anthropologist and also expert on drugs. So we have Miss Hilary Agro. Good to see you.
Hi. Yeah, great to be here.
So welcome, and it's so good to have somebody who I've been seeing on TikTok make great videos regarding drug policy, regarding liberation for people who are oppressed as well. So thank you so very much for taking your time to come on my little channel. It is a privilege to have you.
Absolutely. Anytime I do podcast appearances or any kind of appearances like that, the only people I ever do it for free are fellow anti-capitalists.
Thank you
Like
so
if
very
you're
much.
trying to profit off of a revolution, then you got to pay. But I just want to help my comrades do the work.
Of course. Thank you so very much for that. And, so as far as, and I want to make sure that be respectful of your time, but I wanted to get into your drive for wanting to get into the work that you're doing right now, just so that they can know just a little bit of the surface level about you. So what interested you to get into anthropology and then go the route of the use of substances by human beings? Like, what was that really driving force, and what put you into this space that you're currently in?
Yeah, I mean, I have I have two explanations for that, and I can kind of pick and choose based on which kind of room I'm in, because they're both true. I have the one that's like, is interested in anthropology because the study of human beings is fascinating. I love people. I find our species really fascinating. I actually got into it through biological anthropology, so human evolution and human evolutionary ecology, our evolutionary conditions that led us to, starting to use tools and develop complex relationships with the land and infrastructure and everything. And that leads to sort of studying disease ecology and disease transfer and just sort of general population health. And you can't study population health without looking at the social determinants of health, right? Like health is political. It's just it just is. And so, I started looking at that, and then looking at drug policy, and then there's the other side of it, the spicier side, where I've been a person who uses drugs since I was 15 years old or so. um most people use drugs, like almost everybody. Even if you think you're not a drug user, you probably are. If you drink coffee, you're a drug user. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
That's that's
Glass of wine, you're taking a
Yeah.
drug. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like alcohol, if you like caffeine, if you smoke, arguably, even if you partake in sugar frequently, um, that jury's kind of out as to whether that's considered a drug. I consider it a drug because my relationship to it is very addictive. But not that addiction is the only way to categorize a drug, but
But
Everyone's a drug user.
let me ask this. Also, people can be addicted to the drugs that are inside of our bodies, like the dopamine, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
oxytocin.
exactly. Yeah, there's people can be addicted to almost anything. There's really common addictions like screen, phone addiction. I suffer from that a lot. I think most of us who do social media work struggle with our
Mhm.
addiction to our phones,
Yeah.
especially when it's part of your work. Managing that is really difficult. There's, gambling. There's like sex addiction. There's, people have different relationships to food, especially under the conditions of capitalism. And this is why it's impossible to really do these topics justice without bringing in these social conditions. um, we are alienated, right? We are all, you don't wake up in the morning and feel like, my day today is going to be so nice because everything that I do for my job feels really rewarding. And all of the labor that I put into my job feels really
Yeah.
good. It feels like I'm building something and like, doing something with my fellow humans that are going to be good for us and for my community. A few people have those jobs. If you are a sanitation worker, that's actually, I don't know how sanitation workers feel when they wake up in the morning, but they should be proud because they're doing something important for their community. A lot of people do good work for their communities. But a lot of us, we're just going to make some money for some asshole billionaire who's just going to exploit our labor and take that money and go destroy the planet. And even if you do have a job, like you work as a doctor or a nurse or a PA or whatever in the medical system, your job should be really meaningful because it's very important. But you might hate your job because of the conditions around you that are causing you to be overworked, undercompensated, just not given proper PPE, not given time off, like the whole system, even for jobs that should be properly respected and rewarded, is bad, let alone the people who are like, I am a paper pusher at a bank, like none of my job is useful to anybody. So anyways, people are living these lives, right? Anyone who hears this, most people connect with this kind of description. That sucks. We're human beings, right? This is where the anthropology comes in. We are animals, we're primates, we're social animals. We are not meant to work this hard. We are not meant to, you know, um, the products of the things that we make, the relationships that we develop with the people around us should be going to making our communities better and living better. We should be able to enjoy life and find meaning and seek out knowledge. And generally, for most of our human history, people have had the time to do that. People in the past, before capitalism and feudalism, um, arguably before agriculture, but that's a whole thing, had time. They had so much time in the day to do these things because it doesn't actually take that much time to just like meet your needs based on what's in your environment. But now people are so overworked, so everyone's turning to drugs. You need caffeine in the morning to get up and like get your kids breakfast and get to work. A lot of us rely on ADHD meds. I do. And while my ADHD meds are a godsend for the life that I'm living under late capitalism, it's just to make sure that I function well enough in this society that's not built to accommodate ADHD, which is not a real disorder. It's like a neurotype that is maladaptive under capitalism. So everyone uses drugs, even under conditions where you are living perfectly well. People still use drugs. That's the other thing. It's not that like capitalism is the only reason people use drugs. It's the reason that people's relationships to drugs tends to be not ideal, because they're using drugs to cope. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I think it's really important to say that there's nothing wrong with using drugs to cope. If you're a person who uses drugs, I don't care if you use meth, I don't care if you use heroin, you are not a bad person for doing that. You are doing the best that you can to medicate yourself in the absence of community support and healthcare. It might not be ideal. If you had better supports, you might not want to use those things, but you're doing the best that you can. And if you want to stop using those things, it's no good to just tell people, we'll just stop using them without changing the conditions that make people want to use those things in the first place. But even under good conditions, humans are curious. We like drugs. We like having different experiences. Like I would still want to experiment with psychedelics under full full space communism because they're fun. Like there's joy and fun and self exploration and connection with others are perfectly valid reasons to use these things, and that's an important part of the conversation too. So, yeah, I could keep going, but you know.
No, no, no. It's great that you're going, and I love the nuance that you're bringing in this. In response to what you were saying about the use of substances, and I'm going to be using substances and drugs kind of interchangeably, just so that I don't use the D word so often that it flags on YouTube.
Triggers. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
something that drives me nuts, by the way. People don't appreciate like how like talk about freedom of speech and everything. Like my topic is so dangerous to talk about that I can't even use the word drug as often I would like to, even though it's just a factual statement of word, because it will get flagged. My videos are always getting flagged and taken down because I'm promoting illegal substances, even though I'm not promoting anything. I'm just speaking as an academic about this topic. Anyways, yeah, go on.
yeah, yeah. And so, as far as the recreational use of them, one thing that I notice is that a lot of times, what people usually, from what I heard back then, for instance, you'll have the indigenous using things like ayahuasca. You'll have many different indigenous tribes that have used a lot of these substances. And it's not just as a recreation, but it's also a way to go to different centers of the human brain, the human mind, that we really don't get to visit as often. Or it's like the brain is a house and we're so used to going through the front door and sometimes going through the back door, but sometimes these substances allow us to discover, oh, there's a door to the basement that you can go downstairs and then up through into the house, but we don't know that because we
You can see
never
every room
use
in
it
the house at
to
once.
open our brain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great metaphor. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, psychedelics are a huge topic on their own.
Hmm.
It's interesting because, and yeah, and this, it's important to note that, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff around psychedelics these days because they're imminently going to be legalized, and you know that's great because no drug should be illegal because nobody should be put in a cage for any reason. I'm an abolitionist, and I will stand by that statement, and do frequently on my social media. Uh, I don't think anyone should be put in cages. That's not the correct way of like dealing with social problems, but especially not for like using a substance. So
Hmm.
it's great that psychedelics are going to be legalized. It's also a little bit scary in the context of capitalism because one of the reasons that the things like ayahuasca and peyote and iboga, iboga is an African traditional psychedelic. Um, these have been so powerful and important is the context in which they're used, right? Like under capitalism, they're going to want to like sell, commodify, market, just have people use these things, maybe set up some sort of body of like, these are the only people that are allowed to give you these things, um, but the social context in which it's used is so important. If you just like do ayahuasca like randomly on the street, you're going to have a bad time. If you do it in the in a carefully curated sort of container of an environment where you have a guide that cares about your well-being, that is well trained, you're with other people that you can feel safe being vulnerable with, you can open up parts of yourself and heal parts of yourself that you never even thought was possible. I've had it took me a long I've been using psychedelics for almost 20 years now, and it took me a really long time to find an ayahuasca guide that I trusted because I didn't want anyone doing like cultural appropriation or, exploitation. Like there's a lot of stuff around that with the Amazon and this explosion in it. I wanted somebody I felt safe around because there's also been like sexual abuse and exploitation in these spaces because people get really, really vulnerable. If anyone is interested in learning about the things that we need to be aware of and be careful about around psychedelics and their imminent, explosion in the mainstream, um, listen to the podcast series. It's a limited series, Power Trip or Cover Story Power Trip, Cover Story Power Trip podcast series. Um, it'll get you through everything. Trigger warning for the first episode or two. Um, But yeah, so I've had these transformative experiences, and it's it's really important to do it in these contexts. But like, not everyone has access to these things, and it's once something is commodified, like even like we tend to just commodify the indigenous people that have developed really good traditional uses of these things, even things like coca and like poppy tea and all these things. Instead, we commodify, we extract, we pull the most potent thing out, we stuff it into bags, and that's what people have access to. And that's actually the fault of prohibition. This is really
Mhm.
important too,
Yeah.
is the reason that you can't buy coca tea, and you can't buy, poppy tea or opium, and you can buy fentanyl on the street, and you can buy cocaine and crack, um, is because of prohibition. Because when you prohibit the original plant substances, people aren't going to stop wanting to do them, but it makes it so that it's what's called the iron law of prohibition. People will simply sell more condensed versions of it. Just like how under alcohol prohibition, people stopped selling beer and wine, they started selling hard liquor because it's just more compact to transport when the cops are trying to get it. The same thing happened when they made opium illegal, then heroin became around, and then fentanyl because it's even more compact and small than heroin. So it's prohibition that creates these conditions where we're not able to access these plant substances and use them in the ways that would be potentially most beneficial. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Just well, to add to your point, I was talking to someone who was from Jamaica, and they used to take cannabis leaves
Mm.
and they used to soak it in alcohol, and they would take cannabis and then they would take the alcohol and put it on an area that is aches or pains. Now, of
Mm.
course, they would get the THC high that you get from cannabis, but at the same time, that pain in that area is also relieved because of that concentrated alcohol that they use to rub on that area topically.
Yeah.
And so I found it to be, and then on top of that, the use of hemp in so many different ways that it it would really if we started using them more often, they would bankrupt a lot of these types of businesses that don't that aren't sustainable, environmentally sustainable. So just to add to your point there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because, there's this connection between, so that if they get the THC high from that, that
Mhm,
tends to, we have this weird thing in medicine where medicine is never supposed to be pleasurable, right? Like, oh, if you're getting high from something, then like you're using it wrong, or like you're not allowed to do that. Like, if you have ADHD meds, you can't tell your doctor that you get a euphoric high when you take them, because they're going to think you're taking them to get high, instead of like, well, this is a side effect that I enjoy. You're not even
mhm,
allowed to just use it. Like, if you say I use THC, I use cannabis, but it's medicinal,
mhm,
you have to like downplay the parts of it that are like joyful and pleasurable, because we don't even allow people to like experience pleasure um on their own terms. It's like we can't let workers just like enjoy themselves unless it's with like alcohol, and then it's okay because
Well, isn't that kind of a puritanical type
oh
of
yeah,
mindset? Because
yeah,
it's like, oh, you can't have enjoyable side effects. You can only have bad side effects, right?
yes. This is so complicated. I'm like writing about this in my dissertation right now. I have all these like papers like connecting the puritanical roots of like American capitalism in particular, with this kind of thing, because it's not only connected with like, wanting to sort of control the places that we get pleasure from. It's also connected to this Protestant work ethic idea that like hard work, labor, suffering is morally good. It's morally right. Like, you need to work hard and suffer, because it's just like that's what God wants you to do. And that sort of like hard work sacrifice thing that is just like deeply embedded in the American mythology, it that's a big part of it, and that's basically just yet another one of those myths that is used to justify capitalism, to make workers think, I just need to work hard because it's godly and good, and obviously it's not that explicit for most people now, but that idea that like working hard is good, and I can never just like rest and relax and do my own thing. I always have to be productive, that hyper productivity that you see in like grind set culture and whatever. Who's benefiting from that? Who's benefiting from all of us working our asses off? It's not us. It's the people in charge of the system.
Yeah.
And I mean, hot take about those people, they're also deeply addicted. They're just addicted to the only thing that's genuinely um, harmful to society. Drugs aren't actually they aren't harmful to society. They're a side effect of a society that harms people. The
Mm,
only addiction that is genuinely harmful to society is money addiction and power
mm,
addiction. The
yeah.
people at the top are deeply addicted. I've spent time with capitalists. They act exactly the same as people who are addicted to cocaine. And a lot of them are addicted to both. Like let's be real, but I wouldn't judge them for the cocaine addiction. I do have some thoughts about the money and power addiction. And it's important to, sorry for bringing one of my more hot takes onto your show. But I actually think it's really important that we talk about it. And I have been getting a little braver in my work recently and talking about the fact that we can't dehumanize anybody in our work, right? Like as leftists, we're coming from the heart, we're coming from love. That means we humanize people that have been dehumanized, the most dehumanized people. We
Yeah.
humanize them to see their value and say this is not right. It is not right to blow Palestinians to bits. It is not right to put black men in prison by the millions. It is not right to chain people up at the borders. That comes from a sense of humanity, right? Humanizing each
Yeah.
other. I
Agreed.
actually think it's important, and hear me out, to humanize the billionaires as well. And this doesn't mean that we let them get away with anything. It doesn't mean that we, go like, oh, well, they're trying so hard, like it's fine. It means that we understand that they're humans. They're just sacks of meat like us. We need to
Mhm.
understand what they're doing. And what they're doing is they are uh, terrified. They probably grew up in awful environments because like capitalist families are not fun environments for anyone to grow up in. And they are deeply sick. They're deeply addicted. They're addicted to seeing the money, the numbers in their bank accounts go up. That's all that they care about. It's like a gambling addiction, and it's killing us. It's killing the planet. And I, I don't know, man. That's yeah.
So, okay, so here's the nerd in me about to come out and to try to conceptualize what you just said.
Mhm.
So, okay, forgive me for this, but have you ever seen the movie Captain EO? It's a
No,
short movie. Huh? No?
no.
Okay. So it's with Michael Jackson. Okay. So I encourage you, it's probably on YouTube. You can watch it on there. It's a movie that was made, I think, in the 80s. And so you can tell it's in the 80s because Michael Jackson's white. So yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a part where he goes into this planet. And in this planet, there's this supreme leader. And the supreme leader, she looks like a spider. I used to be scared, crapless of her when I was little. But anyways, so he tries to reason with her, but she's like imprisoned them. And so it gets to the point where he fights against her hordes by turning them into people who will fight with him. And so he ends up at the end using his power on her and turning her back into who she used to be.
Mm.
Someone that is basically she turns from that into a beautiful goddess human being looking person instead. And so he saw the humanity in her and he pulled it out of her basically instead of destroying her.
Interesting.
And so it just goes to show that yes, Harlan Crow, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, yes, they are all human beings. And it's just like when you're punishing a child. There's two ways you can do it. Either you can abuse the child to punish them in order for them to learn their lesson, or you can correct the child in a more kind and loving way and let them see the error of their ways while administering carnal punishment. And so I think that's if I'm on the right track, that's what it feels like you're saying. That's like we have to not only humanize the people who are the most disenfranchised, but the people who are the most franchised. We have to basically take the tool away from them and show them why it's not okay, and pull their humanity back out, or
Yes.
bring it back up with them. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to note that that is it. The only issue is that we don't change can only happen within community, and we aren't in community with the people at the very top, right? Like none of us can access them, none of us can reason with them. Like we need to just forget about them. We need to stay the course with all the things that we're doing: union organizing, strikes, blockades, like all of those things, to take their power away. They have way too much power, more power that nobody should have any power at all, essentially. But like these people, the power that they have is completely beyond anything that's yeah. But where I think that this approach to humanizing capitalists is actually potentially useful for us who are doing this organizing work is it's because it's not, we could get rid of all the billionaires that are currently at the top, and they're just going to be replaced by the ones who are like almost there, right? Like this is a systemic change. And how do people start going up that chain, right? Like how do the people who decide, yeah, I'm going to like go become like a Wall Street banker, I'm going to like expand my business and like all of this kind of thing, people who are like sort of budding capitalists, what stops them from going down that path and instead going down the path of like, maybe I'm just going to have my little business and, go on more vacations every year, or maybe I'll turn my business into a co-op, or, maybe I'm going to, the people who could become capitalists but don't, we need to find out what brought them off the brink. And the people who are right now, especially like working class people who are so embroiled in the system that they think maybe one day they'll become a billionaire,
Mm-hmm.
because those are the people that we need to apply this logic to, this approach to this. Like, so I know that you desperately want money, and yes, you need money to survive in this society. It's not like a desire to have money is, when you're living under capitalism, is like inherently bad, because we need money to survive. So if you are desiring money in order to feed your kids, that's fine. But it's that kind of level where it's like, okay, now you have enough, but you want more and more and more. And maybe if I stay at work a little longer, I know my family's waiting for me at home, but like, I just want to get this next promotion. I just want to get this next thing. The people who become addicted to work, addicted to the numbers in their bank account, that for a lot of people means safety, because if you don't have the numbers always going up, then you're always worried, am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose my job? Or I have a good job now, but like, I could get fired, but if I become the boss, then nobody can fire me. It's all of this fear-based stuff under capitalism that we need to start having conversations within our communities to be like, most people, unless, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I shouldn't say most people. That's actually probably my privilege showing. I was going to say most people know somebody who is kind of an aspiring capitalist or already a capitalist themselves. That's probably not fair, because if you work in like an immigrant farm worker community, you probably mostly just know immigrant farm workers and other working class people.
Yeah.
But, I know people in my community, and I've started having these conversations within my community because I work with like, I'm lawyers, doctors, teachers, social workers. I mean, most of my close community is pretty radical anti-capitalist, but within my larger community, I'm starting to have these conversations where we're like, when can we have interventions on people's money addiction? How can we do that? How can we start being like, hey, like I noticed you're like, yeah, you're really going after that. You want a bigger car. You got another car. You bought a fourth watch, huh? Like, is that making you feel good? Like, and genuinely, and not doing it from a place of shame, but like an open curiosity. Like, is that what's doing it for you? Like, are you okay? Like, is there, have you been getting enough rest? Have you been getting enough time in nature? Would you want to go for a nature walk with me? Like, I don't have all the answers, but these are just conversations that I think that we should start to have, about how to do this sort of like disruption work to get people to get back to our core human selves and be
Hmm.
like, I know you want that chain. I know you want that, it's for interesting. It's something that I can't make more content right now because I need to write my dissertation, but I've often wanting to get people to start asking influencers, hey, why are you wearing a different outfit in every video? Why do you need to do that? I don't like what fast fashion is doing to the planet. And just like, start creating this environment where people like question the influence. Like, why do you need another makeup haul? Like, why don't we see your personality some more? Why don't you try to do a challenge where for a year you buy nothing and make content about that? Getting people to like start with love and not judgment, because if you do it with judgment and shame, people get defensive. But just like, hey, I love your stuff. I would love it if you would talk a little more about fast fashion, or I want to see the same outfit in every video for a month, or getting creative to find ways of encouraging each other in this whole movement against capitalism to just divest from these ways in which our consumption habits in the imperial core are destroying
Hmm.
the planet, without being like, everyone just needs to individually, make changes, but these are cultural changes that can have a big impact.
Yeah, and just to go back to one of your points, you were talking about a fear, and from what I observe is that there is a fear, especially with the ultra rich or the people who want to be ultra rich. There's this fear of, well, if I don't continuously make this much money, then I'm going to go hungry, lose my house, not have enough education, so on and so forth. But here's the crazy part: if you were to get rid of those fears systemically, then the need and want to be ultra rich and a billionaire just melts away. Because
Yeah.
because here's the thing, it's like why do you want $1 billion? Well, so that I'll never have to experience what it's like to be homeless, hungry, or uneducated again. But what if we have a system where you never go hungry,
You
you
can't be
never
those.
go homeless, and you always have access to education forever? Like, what if then your need to accumulate all this wealth is really, you see the pointlessness of it? Because just like, for instance, I just finished reading Asada Shakur's autobiography, and
Ooh, I've been wanting to read that. I heard it's really good.
oh, it's great. I read it on my channel, and I
Yeah.
read, I have it on a playlist on my channel, and so I
You just
read
read
it.
it out loud. I'll totally listen to that. That's great.
Yeah, I read it aloud on my channel. But in the postscript, one of the things she talks about was that in Cuba, you pay either 10% or less for housing in Cuba. And so my thing is, if housing is free or nearly free, then the worry about housing doesn't exist. So therefore, the need to want to have multiple houses doesn't really square really well. And it seems psychotic to want to accumulate more when you have something that you're never really going to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. 1000%. And, part of the reason like capitalism runs on homeless, I mean, it runs on a lot of things, but like one of the fundamental
Never
parts of
run
it,
on Duncan.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, but one of the fundamental components that it has to have to survive is homelessness. Because if people didn't have the threat of homelessness coercing them, they wouldn't go work a job that is like shitty and stupid and like, bad for the environment, bad for their community. The only reason people work these jobs, building pipelines and, joining the military and the police and whatever, is because if they don't make some sort of income, there's they look at people who are homeless on the street. That homelessness is just the existence of unhoused people is a visual reminder to keep us all in place. They're a sacrifice to this system. And absolutely, I think everything that you were saying, I don't know where somebody told me this. If anyone knows where this is from, put it in the comments, please. um Someone said something about like or maybe it's like a philosopher thought experiment where it's like the ideal society is one in which if you were snapped out of existence and snapped back into existence in any random part of society, that you would be okay with that, that you would feel fine just being randomly assigned a place, because every single person is taken care of, and like that should be the foundational basis for designing society, is like would I be okay to be in that place? Is that person being taken care of? Is that person living a good life? Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's a really great point, and I appreciate that. So just to go to one of the next questions that I had. So we already kind of talked about the history of mind altering substances used by humans and how it could be a help rather than a hindrance. Uh, but why would the full legalization of substances, why would it be more beneficial to us as a society, especially from a socialist perspective?
Yeah.
So I
So
mean, we're kind of touching on it already, but
yeah, I
um,
mean, basically, in a nutshell, we can't stop people from using drugs with drug laws. Like it doesn't work. Even if that's your goal, which I don't think it should be. I don't think your goal should be to tell other people what to do with their bodies. But even if you feel like I don't think anyone else should use this drug, sure, fine, feel that way if you want to, but making it illegal isn't stopping anyone from using it. Like more people are using drugs now than ever. We've had this militarized war on drugs. It has destroyed communities. It has put millions of people unjustly in prison. It has destroyed Latin America. It's not working. So of course we need to legalize them. Like as from a practical standpoint, people are going to use the drugs that they want to use. We can't even keep drugs out of prisons, and those are the most heavily guarded places on earth. So why do we think that throwing more money and more violence at the problem if is going to do anything?
mhm,
Legalizing drugs does not mean, and this is the thing that I get over and over, making a drug legal does not mean you're telling everyone you should go use this, right? Like tobacco is legal, and we still have, I mean, at least in Canada, we have like very aggressive public health campaigns and stuff on the packaging. Like if you buy cigarettes in Canada, it's like horrible images of like, uh, lungs and stuff like that on it. Like we discourage people from using tobacco, but we don't put people in prison for using it.
mhm,
Um, so legalizing drugs doesn't mean we're telling everyone, hey, you should use this thing. Commercializing drugs does. So a
mhm,
drug being legal doesn't mean that we have to also let drug companies advertise it everywhere. I don't think we should be advertising tobacco or alcohol or caffeine. I mean, I don't think we should advertise anything ever, but especially not drugs. I think
mhm,
it's wild every time I stay in the US and like half of the commercials on like the hotel TV are for like prescription drugs. That's wild.
mhm.
We don't have that in Canada. Um,
Yeah.
so legalizing it, so that's the sort of practical matter. And then there's the moral argument, which I wish it worked on more people, but quite frankly, it's because I don't think anybody deserves to be put in prison. And I don't think anybody deserves to be put in prison for using, manufacturing, selling, growing, or having anything to do with drugs, because I think that that's heinous. I think that most
Mhm.
of the people arguing that drugs should be illegal have never fucking been to a prison. They
Yeah.
don't know what they are arguing for. You're not just because saying I think drugs should be illegal. You're sorry, I'll start using substances for you. If you're saying that they should be illegal, what a lot of people are saying is people shouldn't use them. But when you make something illegal, what happens? People go to prison for that thing. And I think a lot of people don't contend with that reality
Mhm,
where you are putting people in prison, and that's not okay, and it's not stopping anyone. So, and from a socialist, leftist, communist perspective, it's about bodily autonomy, right? It's about
mhm,
I'm shocked constantly that more feminists aren't taking up this issue because, if women are all my body, my choice, but like also if you choose to put a drug in your body, like fuck you, then like what is your feminism? My body, my choice should apply to everybody. Um,
mhm,
and also, it's a justice issue because if you think right now that you're safe from drug laws, well, guess what? There is a long and colorful history of drug laws being weaponized against activist communities
mhm,
um, to give cops I mean, cops do it all the time, right? That's like the U.S. is the originator of this tactic, giving cops an excuse to pull people over.
mhm,
The drug war fuels the whole like idea behind why cops should exist in a large part. Like they can just pull you over. They're checking for drugs, right? Like what else would they be checking for? And in the meantime,
Mhm.
they're going to harass people of color. They're going to, it disrupt communities and all this kind of stuff. It's also a way of taking away the voting rights in the US,
Yes.
disenfranchising. We had to give Black people the vote. Oh, what do we do now? Let's give cops an excuse to put a bunch of them in prison, and now they won't be able to vote anymore. Take all of the, beautiful and important men out of these communities and leave the women to suffer, and like just destroy these communities, make working class communities fight amongst themselves, sow racism, sow discord, like the war on drugs. And I do think it's important that when we talk about this stuff to acknowledge that it shouldn't just be that we legalize drugs, it should be that we abolish police and prisons. I
Mhm.
went into this work a decade ago, 15 years ago, um, really focused on the drug war stuff. And I came out of it being like, oh no, it's just, why would we put anyone in prison? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that said, it's really important to understand how the drug war functions to prop up
Yeah.
capitalism and yeah.
Actually, to add to your point, because you're just dropping gems here, but to add to your point about the risks that is done against the policies that are done against us, it also even goes into our freedom of privacy. And I just want to share just this article really quick while you're here. This is out of Wired. It says secretive White House surveillance program gives cops access to trillions of US phone records. This was put out a few days ago. And so it says a Wired analysis of leaked police documents verifies that a secretive government program is allowing federal, state, and local law enforcement to access phone records of Americans who are not suspected of a crime. And this article actually goes into the primary reasons of it is to stop drugs from coming into the United States. That's the whole reason for this entire apparatus. But if we didn't have this drug war, this apparatus wouldn't exist. Our privacy would not be threatened in this country if they didn't have to try to monitor what goes in and outside of our own bodies.
Yeah. And I mean, to be clear, they would find some excuse,
Of course.
most
Well, okay.
likely. But it's like this is the one that exists, right? We're not taught like it's like just because they could find something else doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to stop them from having this one.
Mhm.
And it's a big one. And the issue with this one especially is that like so many people just go along with it. They think, oh, the surveillance stuff is bad, but like war on drugs good. And and to be fair, a lot of these things are changing, and that is something I want to really talk about is that myself and my comrades who do this work, we talk a lot about like these are the problems and this is why the drug war is bad. This is why they need to be like legalized. And for the record, I know there's a few people out there right now who are hearing me say legalized and they think no, decrim because we don't want to let corporations make money off of it. Well, guess what? Corporations are already making money off of drugs because what do you think a cartel is? It's a corporation. Like legalization is actually essential because it involves regulation, and regulation is important because these substances can be dangerous, and we don't want them to just be unregulated. We need them to be produced and manufactured safely so that people don't overdose from not knowing what's in their thing. If you decrim, that's great. We don't want people. Decrim is a good first step, but decrim just lets people still overdose. So I just wanted to get that out there. But
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
um,
So one of the things that I also wanted to just ask of you, because I know you say you're doing your dissertation right now, and of course, I also have put it in the comments in the chat, your link tree. But if you could tell anybody where they can follow you, especially, where would they go?
Yeah, so I'm in a bit of a shift right now. My biggest two accounts are Twitter and TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, I am going to be, and my name and my handle everywhere is just Hilary Agro, all
Hmm.
one word. Um, I'm going to be moving away from Twitter because it's just too much of a distraction for my dissertation. I might still make some TikToks, But primarily in the long term, I'm moving to YouTube. I do have a YouTube account already. There's a few things on there. But I'm going to be, there's all this stuff. If you go to my link tree, you can find all this stuff. Primarily, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. I've been posting more on Instagram these days.
Mm-hmm.
And my Patreon, if you want to support my work. I have 2 small children.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do all of this while working and dissertating and doing a lot of local community organizing and
Mm-hmm.
parenting. So those are all the places that you can find me on there. But then also my blog. I'm going to be mostly writing on my website. I have a blog on my website, and I think I just want to write to an audience that really wants to hear what I have to say. You can sign up for like my mailing list on my website, and I think that exposing all of my percolating thoughts during my dissertation writing to a minimum of 50,000, often millions of people every time I post something on the internet is like a lot. So if people really want to hear the good shit that's brewing, you can come to my blog where that'll be just like the core gang.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. I just wanted to be respectful of your time because I know that you got to get to your little ones.
I gotta get my baby out of school.
Yeah.
But the one thing I want to say, because
Mhm.
I am determined to always leave people, oh yeah, and I'm starting my podcast back up soon too. Because I found a way to do it that doesn't burn me out. I always want to leave people, and I think this is important, to leave people with a sense of like meaning and purpose and a sense of your own power, right? Like not just sort of like meaningless hope, but passion, commitment, and like we can change this, we can fix this, and we're going to get on board. This is what's happening. We're all living through a global revolution right now. You can smell it in the air, you can feel it, and it's painful and it's dangerous, and there's a lot of really hard work that needs to be done. But we're going to grieve together and we're going to build together. And the more committed we are to building this movement for a better society, the more we can offer that to people, the more people will join, and the easier the work will be, because the more people that join a movement, the easier the work is for everybody. So I leave you with read the book Let This Radicalize You by Miriam Kaba and Kelly Hayes. Everyone needs to read this book. I am like a proselytizer for this book. I'm literally like, as soon as I get a little more money, I'm going to buy like 50 copies and just bring them with me everywhere I go and like give them to people. Let this radicalize you. If you are feeling hopeless, if you're feeling frustrated, or if you're feeling like we're fucked, read this book. It is a guide for how to build our movements in ways that are sustainable and effective. So never, if you find yourself giving up hope, find community among people who are doing stuff. Find an organization to work with. Building community is what we have. All we have is each other. And even in the face of the most heinous shit that's happening nowadays, if you do movement building and community organizing, it will make you feel better. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And there's stuff that you can do just online if you're disabled or just like don't have, the time or the childcare to go to in-person meetings. Yeah, there it is. And this is I'm just a fan of their work. I make nothing from plugging this book everywhere. I just love them so much. So I just want to make sure that people are feeling like we can do this, because we can, and you can. It's just unlearning the learned helplessness, unlearning the like the Marvel bull, like someone's gonna save us. Oh, if we vote in the right politicians, then they'll save us. No one's coming to save us. We're gonna save
Mhm.
ourselves and each other.
Yeah. Can I give you a book recommendation really quick before you go?
Yeah, please.
So I've been reading this on my channel and it's been amazing. You probably already read it because you're very well read. But Laziness Does Not Exist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't
book.
read that one yet.
You haven't read this one yet?
Yet, but I have a friend who is autistic, who everyone should check out his music, by the way. He just wrote the most incredible, revolutionary, hilarious, like synth pop album. I think it's in my link tree too. It's called King of the Moon by Pusher. It's on YouTube and Spotify. imagine what would happen if Elon Musk built an actual like moon mining colony, and a libertarian like worker guy went up there thinking he was going to become king of the moon, and then when he gets there, it's actually a work camp, and they have to have a revolution and overthrow the capitalist owner. It's so funny. This album is it's the best thing I've heard. It's so good. I love revolutionary art and music, and it's just incredible. Stick with it past the first few songs because it builds to something that. Anyways, that book was recommended to me by him, by Pusher, and I'm already excited about it. And I love a second recommendation because that just knocks it right up my list. So thank you for that.
Yeah, because it is, because some of the things you were touching on, especially as far as our relation to work, is extremely good with it. And so I highly recommend it. And I also read it on my channel, on my playlist too. So I read this on my channel, but I just wanted to,
Thank you for doing
toss
that.
that out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
So thank you so much, Miss Hilary Agro, so much for coming on. It was a privilege, and please come back on soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do this again. I would say anytime, but maybe in the new year so that I can
Sure.
get some dissertation work done.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And
Thank you so much.
have a wonderful, beautiful day.
You too. Keep up the amazing work.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye. All right. So that was a wonderful conversation. I am really glad to have that one, because one of the reasons why is because I I don't think a lot of people have these types of conversations surrounding things like substances, and how really it relates to how we live within a capitalist system. I think that we have to have these conversations more. And a lot of times we'll see people who may be suffering from addiction and think, oh my God, they're this, and insert this type of person where you're judging your character. But in reality, we don't want to do that, because the thing is that they're just trying to cope with the capitalist system. They're trying to cope with a system where it subjects them to housing insecurity, food insecurity, homelessness, lack of education, and so on and so forth. A lot of times people will use substances to deal with the trauma that they're being dealt with within their, different groups, or different parts of society in which they are in. So I think that's important for us to, have just a deeper examination of this, in relation to who we are as humans. So I just am so grateful to Miss Hilary, and she's the Hillary that we do like, not the other one. You know what I mean? The one that shall not be named, that looks like a Sith Lord. You know what I mean? This is the one of the good ones. So I cannot wait to have her back on. Did you guys like the stream? Please make sure to give the stream a like as well. And if you guys have not, you guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys can get email notifications to be put on the mailing list, so you guys are notified whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. Also, just as an aside, for anybody who is also a patron on Patreon or Coffee, or sends me any type of mutual aid via PayPal, thank you so very much. Yes, I am demonetized, so thank you so very much to everybody who is contributing to this channel. It is, a labor of love, so thank you so very much for that. Also, raising money continuously for Orlando Mutual Aid so that we can give toiletries, warm clothes, and grocery gift cards to our houseless neighbors, our homeless neighbors here in Orlando. If you guys go to $Orlando RBN, you guys can also donate there as well. And thank you so very much for any contributions to anybody, from anybody who wants to help us out here in Orlando. Now, for all of you, I'm going to say my hellos, and we're going to talk about this subject a little bit in the chat. And let me go into the Rockfin first, because I don't want to miss that. So yes, let's get into The Rock. All right. Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still Jimmy from the block. Hang on. Sorry, I had that song in my head, just came up out of nowhere. All right. Hang on. All right. So we are going to go to the first comment on The Rock. Thank you so very much to Dave Burt. Good to see you, Dave Burt. And yes, Asada Shakur was a great book. He says JB gets up to some ish with his live readings. Asada has some great insights on police practice in the U.S. and erasure of classes of people in the U.S. in that time. Removal of men from the communities is terrible. Thank you so very much. Let me see. Dave Burt also says apocalypse to community even before you consider what jail is. JB or Hilary, what is Hilary known for? Any bio? Just wondering. She's an anthropologist, by the way. So thank you so very much for that, Dave Burt, and thank you so much for being in the chat. Also, by the way, apologies to anybody that usually watches on Rumble. I forgot. Sorry, it slipped my mind to set up the Rumble right before stream. And so, unfortunately, my apologies. I didn't set up the Rumble, but needless to say, we shall press on. Thank you so much to Zoe. Zoe says, it's just like the co-opting of meditation, Zen, and yoga, culture appropriating ideologies, practice, and limiting the indigenous voices that invented them. Absolutely. We see so many people. Look, no offense, but there's a lot of people who are like, oh my God, I'm going to teach you yoga, right? And then they're making money off of a practice, and they really they will co-opt it, mix it with something that doesn't have much to do with it. And then they'll be like, oh my God, look, we're doing yoga. Or they'll be like, hey, dude, you want to learn about chakras? And it's just like, come on, dude. Like, I understand that you're trying to teach people about these different things, but at the same time, it's like, why not just direct some of that attention to the people who actually came up with the stuff? And, kind of direct, because the thing is, like, you're making money off of it, which, okay, but at the same time, a lot of people don't give their props or the flowers to the people who originated it, which really is cultural appropriation. So I think that's important. So yeah, so thank you so very much. Hello to Miguel. Good to see ya. Whatever man's also in the chat saying hello to Hilary. Yes. Terry Connolly's also in the chat saying greetings, comrades. Jacqueline says hi, Miguel and Jay. Good to see you. I see you tore yourself away from Nick and CJ too, Miguel. I didn't half feel guilty though. It's okay. You can always catch either one of us on the rewatch, so it's all good. Omar Rona says, hello, everyone. Let's continue on in the rest of the chat just to see what everybody else is saying. Let me see. Oh, yeah, Miguel. Talk about Captain EO. The woman with the long nails was scary in 3D. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I was scared like crazy. All right, so let's continue on. Soul Constructs also in the chat. Good to see you. Hi, Bryce Smith. All right, good to see you. What's up, JB? Hopefully you had a great holiday off. It was pretty decent. Yeah, so thank you so very much. Though on Friday, there was a protest in one of the malls here for Palestine that they were marching through, and I wish I could have went, but I was at dialysis. But man, I wish I could have went. That would have been awesome. Jacqueline says, it's not only power, it's the unaccountability where people at the top can and literally do get away with murder. Yeah, so they also have to face accountability as well. I do agree with that. Zoe says that story reminds me of the West African folklore Kiriaku. Recommend watching the movie. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to take a look into that. Let's see. Who else? Who else? Who else? Christopher Begley says, I like Hillary. Yeah, she's pretty cool, isn't she? So, yes, absolutely. Mikey Bot says, but they can't figure out who bought into the White House. They couldn't figure out who brought the twinkle twinkle, right? Goodness gracious. That is hilarious. Wordy in the chat saying, hey, everybody, good to see you. All right. Christopher Begley says the state takes advantage of interpersonal conflicts and harms by removing community members and preventing the necessary healing for communities to grow for the benefit of private corporations. Oh, very good one, Christopher. All right. We got some people with some dropping some knowledge in here. The Quantum Alchemist is also in here and saying, hey, good to see you. John Kemper, also Blue Marvel, Adam Brashear is up in the Tizat. Good to see you. John, Johnny, Adam, good to see you. All right. SG says it's supposed to free all, but all the Americanized yoga has been. Oh man. Look, here's the crazy part. I'm thinking about getting into yoga. I'm seriously thinking about getting into that. And also I want to try some yoga for stretching. And then I also want to try calisthenics. Because so when it comes to like improving myself like physically, I don't want to be some huge muscular muscle bound dude. Nah, I want to be toned, right? And I want to be like, you know how there's those guys that are on the slimmer side, but when it comes to their strength, it's like crazy strong, right? It's like they don't look like they're crazy strong, but they are, but they're on the slimmer side, kind of like farmhands. So I want to be like that. Like I want my strength to be hidden, right? I don't want it to be like apparent, like, oh, this guy must be muscle mass and he's really big and strong. Like, no, I don't want to be big like that. Like, I've been big my entire life. I don't want to be big anymore, right? I want to be who I see myself as on the inside. But that comes with stretching, training, maybe some calisthenics, things like that. And so that's what I'm going to try to do. It's just difficult because when almost half of your time is taken up through dialysis, it just makes it a lot more difficult. But I'm going to try to do the best I can. And plus, one of the people who's inspired me is actually Sabby Sabs, because like she goes to the gym like 3 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week. And so I need to get back into it. And plus, I'm listening to the songs that I used to listen to when I was going to the gym. And now I'm just like, man, I need to get back on that elliptical machine because I used to go so hard on that elliptical machine. It was crazy. Anyway, because when I started going on the elliptical machine, I only do 5 minutes. And then after 2 weeks, I was going an hour and a half, like almost 2 hours on an elliptical machine after 2 weeks because I was going that regularly. And I need to get back on it. I need to do that regimen again. And it was so good for me. Anyways, so yeah. I don't want to get too far off on the subject, but yes. And also, by the way, if I'm going to start doing yoga, I'm going to go to the source and figure out from them exactly how to do it because I want to know exactly the right ways and the reason for and how you build yourself up in those areas. So that's also what I want to do. So, you know, John Kemper says the right amount of alcohol can make you feel any way you want. Look, trust and believe. If I felt any way I want, no, you don't want me to do that. No, no, no. Because I got some hoish ways. No, JB got some hoish ways. No. I ain't doing it. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough. I can't say too much more. Because if I reveal even more about myself, y'all gonna be like, JB is a. Anyway, so what are we talking about today? We already had Miss Hilary Agro on, and we had the conversation. So that was a great conversation. So thank you so very much for her coming on. But the next one we're going to be talking about is attacked in Vermont. So this is going to be a deep subject that we're going to be getting into. And I saw this on Sunday, and I was just like, man, we need to have this conversation. But I wanted to see more information that came out before I talk on the subject, because I may not be the first person to talk about it, but I want to be accurate when I talk about this subject. As everybody knows, the issue revolving Israel and Palestine has, in the last 7 to 8 weeks, has been basically all encompassing in the news, and many people have differing opinions on either side. You have people that stand with Israel unabashedly, and they typically have the Zionist opinion, which we know that, they are siding, in my humble opinion, with genocide that's been going on in Gaza since 1948, but it's been intensified since October 7th because there's been a resistance action from a very militant group. And so now you have an uptick in the amount of Islamophobia that has been happening in the West. Well, unfortunately, some of the victims of this uptick of Islamophobia has happened in Burlington, Vermont. Yes, the home of Bernie Sanders. So this has been happening, and it resulted in the shooting of 3 Palestinian students that are going to college within the area. So let's go into the story about this. And I have plenty of thoughts on this, but yes, it's a lot that's going on right now. Make sure. So let me share my screen. Oh boy. So this is from NBC News. It says suspected arrest in Vermont shooting of 3 U.S. college students of Palestinian descent. A 48-year-old man was arrested after a search of his apartment near the scene of the shooting, Burlington police said Sunday. So it says police arrested a 48-year-old man in connection with Saturday night's shooting of 3 U.S. Palestinian students of U.S. Palestinian descent as the FBI began an investigation and pressure grew to focus on the possibility of a hate motive. Relatives identified the victims and their colleagues gave updates on their medical status. All 3 are being treated in the hospital. So you have Hisham Awartani, is a junior at Brown University who, according to Brown's president, Christina H. Paxton, is being treated at a hospital and is expected to survive. Keenan Abdalhamid is a student at Haverford College in Pennsylvania. Administrators said he was recovering from a gunshot wound in the hospital. Then you have Sassin Ahmed is a student at Connecticut's Trinity College, where he said he is in stable condition in a hospital. The suspect, Jason J. Eaton, was detained Sunday afternoon near the scene of the shooting. Police said in a statement that a search of his property gave investigators and prosecutors probable cause to believe that Mr. Eaton perpetuated the shooting. 2 of the 3 victims were wearing keffiyehs, a symbol of Palestinian nationalism. Well, really, it's liberation, made famous by Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. When a white man with a handgun walked up and, without speaking, opened fire, according to an earlier statement Sunday from Burlington Police Chief John Murad. The Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee said the victims, two of whom are U.S. citizens and the third a legal resident, according to police, were speaking Arabic. So this basically just goes to show that there is a lot of anti-Arabic, Islamophobic sentiments that are growing within the United States, especially since October 7th, because people are constantly perpetuating this notion, this idea that people who are of Arabic descent or people who are of Muslim faith are dangerous because of the perceived actions of a few. Now, just hang on. Why do I say perceived actions of a few? Because a lot of times what will be said according to certain others, particularly in this case, Israelis, is that if somebody leads a resistance against illegal occupation, they will tout it to being terrorism. When in reality, these are the same people that are committing apartheid and genocide within an open air concentration camp that is also known as Gaza. And so when you look at what's going on in Gaza as also as in the West Bank, and you look at the actual facts on the ground that has been reported by investigative journalists there, then you come to the realization that who's in the wrong is the one that's doing the illegal occupation and kicking Palestinians out of their houses in illegal settlements, as well as doing the bombing of hospitals, mosques, as well as refugee camps and churches. So therefore, you start to wonder who's really in the wrong in regards to what's going on there, but who's also perpetuating the narrative that makes the victims look like they're in the wrong for resisting the illegal occupation. And so therefore, you have what's going on right now in the United States, people wanting to get rid of people who are of Arab descent or of the Islamic faith. Case in point, what happened to a little 6-year-old boy in Chicago a few weeks ago? He was stabbed 26 times because he was Palestinian, because he was Muslim. And so now you see what's going on with 3 young men who are college students. And what was their crime? For speaking Arabic and wearing the keffiyeh. That was their crime. Just existing. And so a lot of people are basically saying, well, we don't know if it was a hate crime. Why else would they target these young men? In Burlington, Vermont. Let's be real. That's not a black city. That's not a minority city. All right? Burlington, Vermont. Like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Places like Vermont, Montana, Wyoming. I mean, it's like walking into a room after a little kid has taken, all-purpose flour and flung it everywhere. A sea of white. I'm sorry, but that's how it is in Burlington, Vermont. So when you have some brown people that are wearing a keffiyeh and they suddenly get shot and they're not doing anything wrong, what do you expect me to believe? So let me go into this also as well. This goes a little deeper in this article. And this goes a little deeper about the suspect. So first, let me share what the suspect looks like. This is the suspect. 48 years old. It says Vermont shooting suspect interned at Harvard and taught children. It says John Eaton, who previously worked as a farmer, Ivy League researcher, and ski instructor, according to his resume, thought the world is a mess, and his mother told the Daily Beast. So it says the suspect accused of shooting 3 Palestinian college students in Vermont on Saturday night has worked as a farmhand, a Harvard research student, and a former ski instructor, according to a resume reviewed by the Daily Beast. John Eaton, 48, was arrested on Sunday afternoon and charged for 3 counts of second-degree attempted murder in connection with the shooting. Police say that the college students were walking along a Burlington street when the suspect opened fire with a handgun without speaking. Afterward, he fled. The students have been identified as Hisham Awatani, a Brown University student who was shot in the spine, Keenan Abdulhamid, a Harvard Ford College student who suffered a gunshot wound in the buttock, and Tassin Al-Ahmed, a Trinity College student who was shot in the upper chest. According to a Burlington police probable cause affidavit, 2 of the victims are in stable condition, and police said the third is seriously injured. So they talk about how he struggled with Thanksgiving. He was at the Thanksgiving event at his family's house. His mother said that he seemed, fine and in good spirits. And she's talking about how she's shocked by the entire thing. She said he's such a kind and loving person. Of course, blah, 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 blah. And then they go over his resume. They talk about all the parts of his resume where he was in different science fields, as well as how he taught science to 5th and 6th graders for 2 months in 2005, and how he worked and helped at-risk youth, right, in the School of Urban and Wilderness Survival at the Carolinas and North Carolina. So he's a jack of all trades and master of none, right? Let's go into what happened with the young gentleman. It says the students were shot outside the home of Awatani's grandmother, whom they were visiting for Thanksgiving. Awatani told the police that he and his friends watched TV, went on walks during the visit, and that they did not visit any mosque or have any disagreements with anyone. On the day of the shooting, Awatani told the police they were bowling and then went out for a walk. During this walk, Awatani said they were talking, and they spoke a mix of both English and Arabic. Awatani described they had been wearing purple. Was wearing a purple polo shirt, blue jeans, leather jacket, gloves, and a trench coat, along with him wearing a Palestinian head scarf, basically the keffiyeh. So he told the police that they were smoking cigarettes and they were also wearing a keffiyeh. Says Eden allegedly shot the trio from about 2 yards away. That's not very far. Said Awatani told police that Ahmad was screaming and fell during the grisly crime. Awatani said he called 911 and that the man approached him with blankets. Abdulhamid told the police that when they walked past a White House, a wonky man was staring at them and stumbled down the stairs before he walked up with a pulled-out pistol. Believing that the man was going to shoot them, Abdulhamid said he ran across the street and jumped the fence. The affidavit states that Abdulhamid said that he hid for approximately 2 minutes before he ran to another yard and begged the woman to call 911. When he sat down at the residence, he realized that he was wounded. And so here's the crazy part. Eaton said he was arraigned on Monday and pled not guilty. Not guilty? Are you kidding me right now? So he said He's being held without bail. The arrest affidavit says that when the authorities arrived at Eaton's home on Sunday, he said that there was a shotgun inside. Authorities had confirmed Eaton brought a Ruger 38 caliber pistol in April. He says, "I have been waiting for you." So the mayor of Burlington said this is one of the most shocking, disturbing events in the city's history. So it talks about he had a YouTube account about exposing Fauci, which, I mean, that's nothing out of the ordinary to me. And so it goes into a lot of his social media use. He was also involved in a lot of financial work. That's basically what it talks about. And then talks about how he worked a lot in landscape. But I want to get into this part. It says on Thanksgiving, Reed said, and this was his mother, Eaton was totally normal and the family had a great holiday together. It was not immediately clear whether Eaton owned a gun. It was the best Thanksgiving we had in years. We were all together. So that was his mother saying that. During the family dinner, Reed said that Eaton did not mention the ongoing war between Israel and it's not a war. Hang on. Let me correct this. All right. So that people are aware. It is not a war because Palestine does not have an actual army. They do not have an air force. They do not have an army. They do not have an armada. They have nothing of the sort. So therefore, it is not a war. It is a genocide that is happening. It is a massacre that is happening, especially when you have more over 10 times the people who are killed in Gaza than any type of resistance that has, dealt a blow to Israel. So therefore, it is not a war. A war would mean that there's two equal opposing sides. There is not. So therefore, when they call it a war, it is not a war. And the majority, I would say a majority of the people who have died at the hands of Israel are children, babies. So therefore, this is not a war. So you gotta, whenever you're reading corporate media, you have to take that into consideration because they will always side with the oppressor a lot of times. Anywho, she added, however, that her son is a very religious person. Guess what? A lot of Zionists are, who connects with different religious figures and often reads the Bible. Quote, he, like all of us, thinks the world is a mess. He is a spiritual person. At the end of the family celebration, she gave her son a Christmas tree to start decorating for the holiday. She said she had not spoken to her son since Thursday and assumed he was at home over the weekend decorating the tree. Reed says she found out about the shooting early Monday morning when her daughter came over and woke her up. Police say on that Sunday night, the search warrant was executed to East Eaton's residence. The affidavit states that when the ATF agent asked Eaton why he had been waiting for the authorities, he simply replied that he would like a lawyer before he stepped into the apartment hallway. Inside the top drawer of the dresser inside Eaton's bedroom, investigators found a pistol with a loaded magazine containing 5 rounds of ammunition for a 38 pistol. Attorneys for Eaton did not respond for the Daily Beast request for comment. Quote, I just don't understand. I can't believe he would do something like this, end quote. And a lot of times, a lot of people, especially Zionists, who side with Israel, they will do that. They will see all Arabs or all Muslims as the enemy. And notice I said Zionists because there are more Christian Zionists in this country than there are of any other faith. So a lot of Zionists are Christian. And by the way, a lot of these Zionists are in favor of Israel because they want to usher in the rapture and the coming of Jesus. That's basically what it is. So that is what's going on there. So just to give you guys a little bit of a visual of what's going on. And these are the three young men. By the way, I need to get myself a kafia. But yes, these are them. So let's go.
I'm back here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to get to this breaking news that I was talking about right before the break. The information we have coming from this tweet or X post that is from Hussam Zamlot, the ambassador and head of Palestinian mission to the UK, as well as the former head of PLO mission to the U.S. and strategic affairs advisor to the president of the Palestinian Authority. Take a look at that photo there. It is on your screen as he did post about this, saying 3 young Palestinian men, and he does list their names. They are students at Brown, he says, and other U.S. universities shot last night on their way to a family dinner in Burlington, Vermont, in the USA. Their crime, he says, was wearing the Palestinian Kifaya, and he does say right now that, again, they were shot there and critically injured. And 6 weeks ago, he says, 6-year-old Palestinian child stabbed 26 times in a hate crime in Illinois. He says the hate crimes against Palestinians must stop. Palestinians everywhere need protection. So again, he did tweet out that photo and the limited information we have. We have reached out to police over in Burlington, Vermont to get more information as this is developing overnight. Again, he did post that photo right there on your screen and provided some limited information saying that these 3 Palestinian men were shot last night on their way to a family dinner in Burlington, Vermont, and were critical.
So yeah. So hopefully they make a full and complete recovery. But this just speaks to a lot of what is being perpetuated in the United States, especially if you watch corporate media. Because I blame corporate media for part of this because they're perpetuating the idea that anybody that is Palestinian, Arab, or Muslim is anti-Semitic and that they hate Jews. That is wrong. In fact, there is a respect among Muslims for Judaism. Notice I said a respect for Judaism because Judaism and Zionism are 2 completely different things. Judaism is a religion and Zionism is a political ideology. Conflating Judaism and Zionism is just like conflating Christianity and capitalism. So, with that being said, when it comes to what's being perpetuated in this country, this is what's dangerous. These corporate media outlets are constantly making it seem like, oh my God, they're trying to bring about a second Holocaust against the Jewish people, which is completely untrue. In fact, there are a lot of anti-Zionist Jewish people that are also fighting against what the state of Israel is doing. There are Israelis that are actually saying we need to stop this illegal occupation. But they're not being heard because that ruins the Zionist narrative. And there's a lot of Zionists that actually run corporate media. Now, you notice I said Zionist because not all Zionists are Jewish, right? And so you have Zionists that will, like, for instance, that run the White House. Biden is a Zionist. Trump is a Zionist. Obama's a Zionist. Clinton's a Zionist. They all are. So with that being said, they're constantly perpetuating this in order to keep their de facto military base in the Middle East. That's basically all it really is. So it is perpetuating this danger, perpetuating a dangerous air within the country that we really should not have, because it's placing Arab and Muslim people in danger. And it's also placing Jewish people in danger, because now you got some people who will cling to anti-Semitism and use what's going on in Palestine and in Gaza as a way to be anti-Semitic. And why anti-Semitic? I mean truly anti-Semitic. So that's the problem, what's going on with corporate media. And you have people like this guy, Mr. Eaton, who probably listens to corporate media constantly and constantly listening to Zionists and decides, oh my God, they're the ones who are perpetuating this. I need to stop this. And then goes out and shoots 3 young Palestinian students. This is why the system needs to change. Because you have people that are doing things and what they feel in their mind, their propagandized mind, is just, and their brainwashed mind they feel is just, and they end up carrying out heinous acts because they feel that they're doing God's will. When in reality, they're not doing God's will. They're doing capitalists' will to perpetuate and keep violence against marginalized people in this country. Zionism is not God's will. Zionism is corporate dictators' will. It's the ultra wealthy rich's will to keep Jewish people, Muslim people, Arabs, and Jews in danger by pitting one group against another. By saying to one group, oh, you can have this person's land. They're not really using it, when in fact they are. Peep game. This is what they did to a lot of the African tribes when it comes to colonialism. They will pit one group against another, and it will make one group resent the other. What did they do? They took Jews, they told them to go to Palestine, set up shop there, take all the rest of the land, and then now you have 2 marginalized groups fighting against one another. Because one is like, hey, you stole my home. The other one's like, hey, they said we can have it. And now you have settler colonialism. that's being dealt a blow against a nation of people who just want to live in peace. Anyhow, so yes, that's what happened over the weekend. We have to constantly let people know the truth about what's going on so that they don't perpetuate this violence. And then people, and I know a lot of people are going to be in the comments being like, well, what about what the Palestinian Hamas? What about what they're doing against the Israelis? You mean resistance? Look, I got the answer. I know exactly what to do. If you guys want to stop the violence against Israel, here's what you do. It's very simple. Stop the occupation. Stop the illegal occupation. And give the Palestinians back their land. It's only been 75 years. It's not like you guys had it for that long. Just stop the occupation. It's literally that simple. It's literally, it's look, everybody makes it out to be something so complicated. Like, oh my God, it's such a complicated issue. No, it's not. It's not a complicated issue, people. In fact, it's very simple. Just stop stealing people's stuff, give them back their stuff, and then come together, have talks, and be like, look, can we live among you? Because this is the Holy Land. Guess what? Palestinian people are very hospitable. They will be like, sure, you can move in next to me. We can celebrate Hanukkah, and then you guys can come and over to our house while we celebrate our holidays. It's all good. Just don't steal my house. That's it. Like, what is so wrong with just living amongst people and then not stealing their stuff? That's all it really is. Because in 1948 in the Nakba, you guys displaced 750,000 people and killed 15,000 people. There's almost 20,000 people that were killed since October 7th, which means that you've actually killed more people, more Palestinians since the Nakba, which means you actually killed more people, more greater than the Nakba. We're literally still in the Nakba 75 years later. It literally is. The Nakba continued. I'd argue that, yes, the genocide against indigenous Americans continues. The genocide against Palestinians continues. It ain't stopped. And like, for instance, Norm Finkelstein has said they continuously mow the lawn. What does that mean? That means getting rid of Palestinians periodically. So that's the answer. Give them back their land. That's it. And if you guys honestly want to stay there, okay, make a deal with them. Sit down with them. That's all they want. They just want to end the occupation. And all this hand wringing about, oh my God, they may come here. They're not interested in coming here. They don't want to come here. They just want back what's theirs. And please don't give me that ancient Israel stuff. Because I could even let's hypothetically say, even if it's true, you were like, that's ancient Israel, that's our land. You guys don't think that there's some DNA ties between you guys and Palestinians? So in essence, that is still their land as well, because they are also descendants of ancient Israelites. Those are just your cousins that you're moving out. Also, when it comes to the people, if you say that that's your land, why in the world are you not just living among them? Why do you have to move them out? Oh, because they're a different religion. There are also Jewish Palestinians that are there. Remember what the Torah says. Be kind to the people because you were once settlers in a land. You were once foreigners. So you need to treat people with kindness. That's what it says. So therefore, what are you doing? If you actually consider Palestinians foreigners, then why are you treating foreigners so harshly when God told you not to? He told you to treat them as your own. Anywho, so let's get to the Chizak. Oh, by the way, give a like real quick. Thank you. All right, let's go into the chat. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. All right, we're good on the Rockfin side. Let's go into the YouTube side. All right. Okay. Oh, SG says, remind me of 9/11 Islamophobe all over again. Yep. Absolutely. That's a good one. Jacqueline says the same people who are Zionists will be protesting like anything if it were people from another country being displaced. They can't just see the cognitive dissonance. Absolutely. Thank you so very much. And the funny thing, it's interesting. I've noticed a lot of Zionists, when I talk about oppression, and I've noticed this on Twitter, is a lot of them start becoming racist and saying racist things. Like one of them said that the blacks are doing better in Israel than they were doing in their countries in Africa. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like a white supremacist says, well, if it weren't for slavery, you guys would still be living in mud huts in Africa and you guys be carrying spears. Yeah. Scratch a Zionist and a racist bleeds. All right. So yeah. Jacqueline says sounds like his resume could have been taken with a pinch of salt. Soul Construct says he was already racist. You don't just wake up racist. No. Quantum Alchemist says that's what destructive ideologies do to you. They destroy you. That's why it's so important people make themselves free from their destructive ideologies and or traits. Terry Connolly says it's genocide. Free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan, free Haiti. Thank you. Jacqueline Hemming says, weren't Christians, Jews, and Muslims all living together peacefully in Palestine up until all the Zionists move in? Yes, in fact, they were under the Ottoman Empire. They were living in peace all together, celebrating each other's holidays too. Yeah. 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 Jews and Christians would celebrate Ramadan with the Muslims. The Muslims and Christians would celebrate Hanukkah with the Jews. And then Easter and Christmas would get celebrated by Muslims and Jews, along with Christians. Like they all were chill with each other. Why? Because all their religions originate from the same source. They're all Abrahamic religions. They cousins. Zionism divides the Abrahamic religions so that they do not have any type of unity. That's what it does. It's dividing the Abrahamic religions apart. So there's no harmony. And it sucks. Because to all the people who are Jewish, who are anti-Zionist, oh my gosh, they showed the beauty of Judaism. They showed how it is, how hospitable and loving and compassionate they are. And it's the same thing with people who are in Islam. They show how loving and how honest and truthful, and how they have this grit and determination to want to make sure that they are the best versions of themselves. And then you have the Christians who display love and compassion to their fellow human being. And these people who are anti-Zionists, who are in these religions, and then even the anti-Zionist atheists are showing how loving and compassionate they really are. But then you have the people who are Zionists who come and ruin it all. There can be harmony. It's just the capitalists don't want harmony, because harmony ruins everything for them. I mean, where's the lie? Quantum Alchemist says 1, give Palestinians their land back. 2, apologize, pay reparations. 3, now both sides can make peace for good. I agree. Oh, and 4, no more Zionism. Yeah. By the way, most of the original Zionists who established the state of Israel are actually atheists. From what I've seen, Netanyahu is also an atheist. So. Oh, John Kemper, thank you so very much. He says, I'm not able to accept people who think others are animals just cause. When you start to dehumanize another group, that's what's dangerous. Because the moment you dehumanize another group, then you see it as okay to commit genocides and war crimes and crimes against humanity against them. You make justifications for their suffering. How do I know this? Because this is what happened to my people. John, right? This is what happens to us. They make justifications for our suffering, for our oppression, because they will say things that aren't true, like how we're all thugs, or 13% of the population but commit 50% of the crimes, which isn't true. And then they generalize us all. This is why we have to be very, very careful with how we speak of other groups of people. And Jacqueline Hemmings, I'm going to give you the last word on this, says, also, if you dehumanize another group, you dehumanize yourself. Thank you, Jacqueline. Oh my gosh. Bars, Miss Jacqueline. Bars. So go ahead and give it a like your stream. If you guys have not, you guys can subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. And if you guys have not already, do you guys mind contributing to Orlando RBN? We're actually, of course, doing a fundraiser for that. We're doing grocery gift cards, toiletries, and warm clothes drive that we'll be doing in December. If you guys go to $Orlando RBN so that you guys can contribute. Our goal is $3,000. We're a third of the way there. We just need a little bit more of a push. So thank you so very much. And to anybody that's a new patron on Patreon, I would like to thank you for becoming a patron on Patreon. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. So thank you so very much. So to all of you who are patrons on Patreon, as well as Coffee, thank you for the work that you do. You guys make this channel possible, just to show you guys the tiers of what I have so that you guys are aware. On patrons on Patreon, we have JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. So thank you so very much for all that you guys do to keep me doing this work. I deeply appreciate it very much. So with that being said, I'm going to head out. Of course, I will be continuing the reading of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. So if you guys have not, look, start going into my playlist and start up with chapter 1 and the intro in chapter 1, because this book is fire. I deeply appreciate if you guys do that. Also, I finished the complete reading of Assata Shakur's autobiography. So if you guys would like to, you guys go into the playlist for that to get that reading. Of course, I am thinking about starting another reading from another Black woman. I'm thinking of Bell Hooks. I don't have the money to actually buy the book to have it. I want to. I'm going to have to dust off my library book and go to the library to see if I can get a book from her, because I forgot the name of the book that she wrote that's very famous. I think it has to deal with feminism and masculinity and things like that. But I want to get into that because I think she does it from an anti-capitalist stance. So I want to get into that as well to educate myself even further. But I'm going to, try to get into that. I'm probably going to have to put my Nikes on and stroll over to my local library, because I'm probably going to have to get it from there and probably keep checking it out. But anywho, so yeah, I'm going to be doing that. But thank you so very much to everybody who has tuned in today. Thank you again to Miss Hilary Agro, talking about substances, talking about humanity, and how really humanity, part of being a human is using some of these things in different capacities. That's what we do. That's what we've done since the dawn of human existence. So, it's good to kind of square that circle. You know what I'm saying? So thank you so very much. And my hope in solidarity goes with anybody who is suffering the oppressed right now. There's people in Palestine, Sudan, Congo, Haiti, Mali, Burkina Faso. That's to anybody and everybody that's going through it. And yeah, free them all, baby. That's what I got to say. Anywho, thank you so very much to all of you. Look, water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny. Release that oxytocin. Sniff those pheromones of your loved one who you sweet with. Joy is revolutionary. And yeah, take care, everybody. See you guys next time. And oh, silly me. Mwah. Forehead kisses. Mwah. I'm gonna give you a second one because I waited too long. All right, I love you. All right, bye. Mwah. Number 3, because that's how we do it. you.